Hi there, my name is Peter O'Connor, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about personality and more specifically personality traits. I'm going to firstly define personality as well as personality traits and give you a very brief overview of the history of research into personality. After this I'm going to talk about personality in the workplace, why the Big Five is a particularly useful set of constructs in the workplace, and which personality traits can predict performance over a range of different situations. After this, I'm going to move the focus more to personality testing. When is testing appropriate? When is it not appropriate in the workplace? And what are some of the risks of personality testing at work? Then I'm going to move on to what I think is an interesting area of research on personality change. Can personality be changed? Can it be purposefully changed, or does it just change naturally over time? And I think most controversially, should we try to change people's personality for the purpose of improving their job performance? So, what is personality? What I tend to find is that most people have a very good intuitive understanding of what personality is. Anytime we describe other people's behavior or some enduring aspect of behavior, we're describing their personalities or what we perceive their personalities to be. For example, words like nice, kind, friendly, tolerant, helpful, and so on. These are words we use to describe others' personality characteristics or personality traits. So essentially, a personality trait is a characteristic of someone that tends to remain stable over time, that also tends to differ across people. And by differ across people, what I mean is that some people score high in a particular personality trait, whereas others score low in that particular personality trait. So some people can be very unhelpful, and they tend to stay unhelpful over time, whereas others are consistently helpful when they interact with others. Now, there are literally hundreds of different ways that people differ from each other, and consequently, there are hundreds of ways that we could potentially measure personality, or there are hundreds of different personality traits that we could potentially measure. But what researchers tend to find is that most of the traits that we measure align fairly closely with one of what we call the Big Five dimensions of personality. In other words, when we measure people on these Big Five dimensions or Big Five traits, we capture the majority of variation in their personality traits or behavior that reflects their personality. Okay, so what these traits are is first of all extroversion, which is essentially the extent to which people are highly energetic, highly sociable, seek out novel situations, always look for rewarding situations. The second major personality trait is agreeableness. Okay, so these people are very compassionate, they're very warm, they're sensitive, they're very high in empathy, and they make great friends because they're good to talk to when you have some kind of issue or some kind of problem. The third major personality trait is conscientiousness. Now, most of you probably have a good understanding about what this actually is, and most of you would be fairly accurate, I would imagine. A conscientious person is someone who's organized, who's dutiful. They tend to be on time for meetings, they tend to be very reliable, and hard workers. People who are high in conscientiousness are also very goal-oriented. They set goals and they try to achieve them. The third major personality trait is called either emotional stability, or at the low end it's referred to as neuroticism. So those who are high in emotional stability or who are emotionally stable, they tend to be low in anxiety, they tend to be self-confident, they tend to handle stress very well, and they tend to be relaxed in situations where other people may not be relaxed. And the final major dimension of personality is openness to experience. Those who are high in this personality trait tend to be highly creative, they tend to be open to new ideas, they tend to be artistic, and they tend to consider themselves as quite intelligent. Okay, now like I said before, when we know someone's score on the Big Five dimensions of personality, we can do a fairly good job at predicting their behavior across a variety of situations. And this is where the Big Five model has a lot of logical appeal in terms of workplace behavior. Theoretically, if we know someone's score on the big 5 dimensions of personality, then we can reasonably accurately predict their performance across a range of work situations. Now, this intuitive idea has been studied now for a couple of decades, and what research tends to show is that yes, when we do know someone's score on these personality traits, we can relatively accurately predict their performance across a range of work situations. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about this research is that it demonstrates that all of the big 5 personality traits, at least in some situations, predict behavior and performance. Now, arguably the most important personality trait for the workplace is conscientiousness. As I said before, this can be defined as the extent to which people are organized, dutiful, goal-oriented, timely, and so on. People who are conscientious, they tend to perform well at their job, and this is based on supervisor ratings of their performance, as well as objective ratings. They tend to perform well at their job regardless what their job is. Okay, so this can be workers in construction, can be workers in office environments or elsewhere. Conscientiousness, regardless of what job someone is doing, is a moderate to strong predictor of performance. Now, as I said before, the other personality traits also have their value, but it depends on the situation largely as to whether that particular personality trait is going to be important or unimportant. To give you an example, and this is one of the areas that I do a lot of research in, is leadership. We know that extroversion is one of the strongest predictors of leadership, such that if someone is high in the personality trait extroversion, they're going to be seen and perform as a better leader than people who are low in the personality trait extroversion. So this tends to be the case for people in supervisory positions. It's a benefit for them to score high in extroversion. Other personality traits, such as agreeableness, like I said before, this is a trait that predicts kindness, compassion, and so on. These people tend to work very well in teams. Those high in openness to experience tend to perform very well where creativity is important as well as intelligence, whereas emotional stability tends to predict performance similar to conscientiousness across a wide range of different occupations and situations.